Yeah.
Please let me know. Please.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to N12D. Today, Kathy is not with us, but we have an amazing topic, and we have an amazing person with us in the studio, Sarah McLean, and my partner, Susie from Ireland. Susie, you want to run with it?
Yes, indeedy. I'm so happy to be here. It's great fun doing this podcast weekly now because we get to hang out every single week. We're here for an hour, and every week we get to meet somebody really inspirational. And I'm so excited about this week's guest because she's a real inspiration of mine. She's a dear friend. And over the years, I've really got to know her. So hopefully you'll get to meet and greet Sarah here on the call and learn all about her amazing life, where she's moved from just an ordinary life to living an extraordinary life. So Sarah, you're very, very welcome. Sarah is a Hay House author. She's a meditation teacher, academy director, and so many other things. I think we'll learn as we go through the call today, like more and more about Sarah. But Sarah, you're really, really welcome warmly. What would you like to share about yourself? Where you're at right now over there in California? Is the sun shining?
We just went through a big hailstorm, but now the sun's coming out, so it's fantastic. Thank you for having me here today, Susie and Ramsey. And I'm excited to talk a little bit about going from an ordinary life to an extraordinary life. And I feel like my operating system is just mostly hanging out with gratitude. You know, I would say that I originally, and I know we're going to be talking about the divine masculine a little bit later, but I want to talk right now about how I went from living in a pretty traumatized house. I was traumatized in my household as a kid, and I went and joined the Army. And I had already been spending a lot of time living in a van on my own, but I need a little direction. So who would think this? I wanted to be a spy, but I didn't qualify to be a spy. Instead, I qualified to be a behavioral specialist working with soldiers who were dealing with post-traumatic stress. And I was in the military going through a pretty extensive training. And what I didn't realize at the time is I'm trying to navigate the nervous system and understanding fight or flight versus rest, digest, and what happens to a body that's under trauma, acute trauma. Is very similar to what happens to a body that's been under a lot of chronic trauma or chronic stress. And so there I was learning all about the nervous system and didn't realize it, but I had been suffering at the time from a lot of trauma. It created a lot of anxiety, created a lot of reactivity. I felt as if I just didn't belong. It was a very strange feeling of just sort of not even belonging in my own life. So I was sitting on a lawn outside of a psychiatric hospital. I was the trainer in there working with soldiers, where a lot of them ended up in these psychiatric hospitals who were dealing with stress. And my superior was a lieutenant nurse, and he guided us through a body scan, this mindfulness body awareness practice. And it was so apparent to me after 10 minutes of this practice that I was operating in the fight or flight response for most of my life, and how quickly 10 minutes of just letting the ground support me and relaxing my whole body, how quickly it changed my whole being. And that I can remember as clear as day. That was in 1980. I mean, that was many years ago. Yeah. And so that was sort of a seed that was planted and really grew into my whole life.
It's amazing, isn't it, how these things happen? How, you know, that one moment is the seed for the next, 20, 30 years. Like,
yeah. So I was in the military about 5 years, and then I went from there to going into real estate. Came back. I actually, before I went into real estate, I came back and I was searching for sort of a secret sauce to belonging in my life. And I was very athletic. I decided I was going to do a bicycle trip, and I was going to go for 2 years around the world on my mountain bike. It was kind of a thing that people didn't do. As a matter of fact, people had never really even seen mountain bikes before. I was one of the very first ones when I was living in Boston, driving around or riding around on my bike. Anyway, I went, and I only ended up being gone for 9 months. What I did prioritize was I was prioritizing going to these places where you hear magic happens, whether it's going to these sacred sites in Greece or up in Pakistan where their whirling dervishes are, where the sibyls are, in these various beautiful spots. I was going up to Hunza Valley where people live to 100 years old as they're eating the insides of apricot pits. And I went everywhere looking for the keys to whatever it was I was looking for, my own home probably. And only when I was bicycling up the Himalayas along the Karakoram Highway in Pakistan, which most people probably wouldn't do these days, but it was one of the most glorious places on earth. And many years later, I come to find out I was going through these areas that the Vedas were born in. The Vedas tended to be this ancient wisdom that I had only heard a little bit about. Ultimately, it became something I fell in love with. And I had no idea I was at that birthplace. Turns out I went up to Asia, went up to the Golden Triangle, and we had to cut our trip short because my boyfriend who I was traveling with had gotten pneumonia. But one thing he taught me, because when we were in Greece, it was the hottest. They were going through a heat wave, and there I am in the baking sun and, going through these mountainous ranges. And he said he was a Zen Buddhist, and he taught me how to chant. And this chant I know today was a chant to what I found out later was Kuan Yin. In Japanese, it's called Kanzeon. And so I would just pedal to Kanzeon, Namu Butsuyo, Butsu, and all day long. And I was suffering from heat stroke a lot of the times. Anyway, that was the beginning of recognizing that what I was looking for is actually inside me.
Wow.
Inside me. And I didn't need to go for 2 years. As a matter of fact, when I came home, I got into real estate. I won't go into that story, except for I can say I was living in Washington, D.C., and I was dating a fellow who said, look, your anxiety is over the top. And I think if you want to be my girlfriend, you're going to have to learn to meditate. And so I sort of dabbled with meditation a little bit, right? I had chanted. I'd been lying on the ground outside and doing a body scan. So I was okay with that. And that instruction really did change my life. I made a commitment from the day I learned to meditate for the rest of my life. And I've been doing it ever since. And that's over 30 years ago. So,
wow.
It's quite a journey. I mean, you can try to avoid what's meant for you in your life, and it will just keep on showing up until you get it. And that happened to me. Meditation was my key to coming home to myself. It was also the key for me to feel very comfortable in my body most of the time and to be very present most of the time. Whereas before I couldn't get away from myself fast enough. And that's what trauma does. It sort of disembodies us. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I have a similar thing that happened to me because I lived in a war in Lebanon.
Oh, yeah.
It actually, over the trauma, you disassociate from your body completely. And what you just said just resonated with me because I went into those mantras, what do you call it? Om Mani Padme Hum.
Oh, yeah, the Tibetan Buddhist mantra, yeah.
Yes, it wouldn't end until it broke something inside me.
Right. Right. It's such an anchor. And, mantras in general, as Susie and all of us seem to know, is mantras means instrument for the mind. And really what it is, it's an anchor, or it's a great way to hang on to something that is nourishing for the mind versus our internal conversations, which sometimes can scare the daylights out of us. Our imaginations have been hijacked these days. And, obviously you didn't have to imagine a war, you were in it. But in the US right now, we imagine wars, and I'm sure many of us do around the world. And it's almost as if our imagination, our most creative intelligence, has been hijacked by the multimedia streams of information.
Mhm.
And it's time to reclaim our imagination, and I do this every morning now. Before I get out of bed, I have a moment or two of gratitude. I set my intention for the day, but then I spend, at least 10 minutes imagining a life where beauty reigns and joy reigns and peace reigns. And, I think this is time for us to use our imagination. I think it was Pablo Picasso said, what you can imagine is real. And what you can imagine also sets the stage for your body, because if you imagine, terror, if you imagine a horrible thing happening, your brain doesn't know the difference between your imaginings and the real thing. And that's where we're fed all this information, all these scary movies and stories and newscasts. And we get to reclaim our imagination now. We really do.
Wow, it's like that's really the title that we decided to give this episode is, from trauma to transcendence, a
Right.
path to inner peace. So, it's amazing when you're ready, the tool arrives or the mantra arrives, the teacher arrives, the book, in whatever form it comes.
Yes.
And when you're in that receptive state, you just kind of, it won't leave you, a bit like what you were saying about Om Mani Padme Hum, Ramsey, when you were in Lebanon. But what I'm really interested in is, so you've had a steady journey, with meditation, ever since. It never left your side, which is phenomenal. And obviously has had a really transformational effect on everything you do. Your whole career is based around it. And that's how Sarah and I met. We met through her being an amazing, inspirational meditation teacher. And she came to Ireland as a keynote speaker for an event that we were doing, and we just got on really, really well. And she does an amazing job. She has a teacher training. She's putting out incredible teachers into the field to really be those people that are there to help people who are, coming out the other sides of trauma to figure out, how to find that balance, how to come back to that self, that inner journey, I guess. So what I'm really interested in now that we have you to ourselves, Sarah, is to just, we do live in a world where we are hijacked. We are, our whole, attention can be hijacked by the news, by whatever is going on in current affairs. And there's a real kind of a rising of this kind of toxic sort of masculinity that's out there. And like you said, it's very, very hard to get away from. But I believe in the antidote to that is the rising of the divine masculine in all of its forms. And it's a subject that we've talked about on numerous episodes. And I'd love to get your take on that. Do you see, as much as we are aware of what's going on, do you see this divine masculine expressing through maybe people who come on your teacher training or in your own day-to-day, in your relationships? I'd love to expand a little bit about that if you can.
Well, it's funny. I was on a call this morning with one of my teachers she was we're on class 33 now, which that's 33 groups of people who have gone through the program. And she was in class 13. She reminded me today. And she's gone on she's an engineer, and she went on to coaching, and she goes, well, I don't want to coach men. They're so difficult. And I said, maybe you have something to share. You're already credible. You're already an amazing meditation teacher, and you're an engineer. And I think it's time for everyone to wake up to their inner divine masculine and their inner divine feminine. And they're slightly different. Of course, the feminine's receptive, the feminine's intuitive, the feminine's nurturing, the feminine surrenders and trusts the unknown. But there's so many beautiful qualities of the divine masculine, which is really taking that inspired action. I have a lot of Mars influence in my particular life. And so that's why I joined the military. That's why I went on impossible journeys. That's why I tend to be forging through the unknown and just willing to be a pioneer. And I think that is the divine masculine. And I love to see the pioneers. I love to support pioneering. I love to also encourage the divine masculine to trust themselves and to not get too caught up in the self-image. I think that is, we're in the world of how many likes, how many clicks, how many shares can you get? And I think it can take people out of their inner knowing, their inner GPS. I also believe that I love being around a awakened masculine man, because they really, really take seriously creating stability and providing for whoever's in their sphere. And there's so many beautiful qualities for that. I also know that in the midst of trying to make it in the world, there's a lot of competition. And some people thrive on competition, but it can bring out the worst in people too. And it can dehumanize people. And I feel like we need to create some empathy and tap into the common humanity instead of objectifying, which I think happens right now, objectifying whether it's a female or a male, and not seeing who they are as a human being. So I feel like that is maybe a key, is to cultivate empathy, which is something we're all born with a certain amount of empathy, but we have to purposely aim to create it, like seeing the commonality between each other instead of going, well, you're on that team and you're on that team. And I don't like it when people wear that uniform or vote that way. It's like, no, we've got to step away from competition and move toward cooperation. I think that's the key. And you can't do that without empathy.
Empathy is the key. Without it, we're a bunch of robots.
That's right.
Seriously, there's no connection to anything, not only human beings, but to the world, to Earth itself. We lose that connection, and with that, it becomes us and them. And I fully agree with your point there. And
I wrote go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to put something out there, is that it's not about mixing. It's about having a balance between the masculine and the feminine part of it. Okay.
Right.
You can still be a man and just ignite a small spark within your feminine side that will create what do you call it? It's like I don't want to use empathy again, but it creates connection and become understanding of the others, and that creates the connection and the empathy from it.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with kindness. There's nothing wrong with empathy. There's nothing wrong with understanding, and that there is a place for all of that in the workplace, in the arena of making a living or being a man or being a woman. There is this connection. I feel like we talk about trauma and dissociation. Maybe that's what's going on. I know I was recently at a restaurant down here. There's a Mexican restaurant I went to, and there was a man there, and his son was sitting at this booth, and he was his son must have been about 6 or 7, and he was really being mean to his son. And I wanted the mother to step in and say, hey, you don't have to treat him like that. But she didn't do anything, and the son was crying. And as he cried, the father continued to berate him. And I thought, gosh, when is this going to stop? When is that father going to realize that is not the way to bring up somebody who's strong and confident and clear and present and fearless? I mean, I feel like that's the wrong way to go about creating courage, is by beating someone up,
Absolutely. I'm curious to know, I know you've written a book. Well, you've written a couple of books actually, Sarah, but in your first book, which was, soul-centered, and it's a really great book in terms of getting you set up, getting you started, and lots of really great examples in there. Since writing the book, how has your own kind of personal practice changed? I know we have a way of, when we're teaching somebody to meditate for the first time, or, in the first couple of years, the support and the tools that you have. But as a really long-term meditator and an author and, a real expert in your field, has your own personal practice changed and evolved? And, does that cultivate the empathy? Does that cultivate those qualities of compassion and, that awareness that you're talking about?
I would have to say yes. And, teacher learns most. So I think I'm learning all this because I needed to learn it, because, like I said, I didn't grow up in a real nourishing experience of a household. And whether I like it or not, that's just the reality of it. But it also pushed me to find nourishment. And I got a text this morning from my cousin, who I love dearly. Her mother just passed away last week. And she goes, I just feel like I am living in a dystopian universe, because she's really tapped into whatever's going on in the news. And I go, I am not worried about anyone else. I am sitting over here in my little joy bubble. I used to call it I was always saying, I got to get on the peace train. You want to get on the peace train, a la Cat Stevens? And I go, no, it's a joy train. That's what we're doing now. I'm switching trains. And, I think different practices arise and have impact at different times. Like I said, now I used to wake up in the day and in the morning and say, okay, today I'm going to be present. Today I'm going to be grateful. Today I'm going to be kind. And so that was really my operating system or aim in the morning. But now it's today I'm going to wake up. I'm going to stay out of everybody's business. I'm going to stay out of the drama. I'm going to hang out with myself and hang in the joy train. And I'm going to imagine a future that is possible. We are drawing it in. We're imagining this future, and we can do it together collectively. It doesn't have to be the same exact image, but what would make heaven on earth for you? And so that's my current practice, but it's over the years, it's changed. In terms of what I'm teaching, I really feel like I'm teaching people that meditation can be your best friend. I feel like I'm teaching people the reliability of the practice that yokes your awareness to who you really are. Outside of everything else, there's this presence here, it's looking through your eyes, it's listening through your ears, and just to continually remind us to remember that. Even as I'm speaking as this image of Sarah McLean, there's this presence here that is indelible, and it really helps us get through the difficult moments in life. I was just writing an article about the imposter syndrome, which many people have as they become teachers or they become a little more realized. They want to share it. They're like, who am I to do this? Well, if you have a dependable practice and experience, who are you not to do it? And, it doesn't have anything to do with you. You just happen to be walking around in a body. Just imagine that God lives through you as you. That's really what is happening here. Well, that's my belief anyway. God lives through you as you, and this impetus for sharing is, maybe God's impetus to share, this in creative intelligence with each other. So that's what I aim to do, is help people remember that. And I know it's so, amorphous. It doesn't even have any particular, you can't touch it or smell it or hear it, but it is a perspective that everybody can have. That's where I'm going. That's what I'm teaching. That's what I'm anchoring into. It's a lot going on. There's a lot going on this planet. Might as well hang in there and have some joy. And remember that you're not in the wrong place. Your journey is unfolding perfectly. Whatever it is you're called to do, that's the divine masculine stepping into action. And trusting yourself when that shows up.
Yeah, I like that. If you want to give somebody a tip on how to move from an imposter syndrome into their highest power.
Well, I have a few tips. First of all, the first one is don't believe everything you think. Okay. You're standing in front of an audience going, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't belong here. I'm not ready. Okay. All of those thoughts, you don't have to believe them. Here they come, and you don't have to pay any attention to them. You can either ignore them, or you can meet them and say, okay, is it true? I don't know what I'm doing. What's the reality of it? I went through a teacher training program. I've been doing this for 30 years, whatever your reality is, right? So stop believing the lies you tell yourself that are self-limiting. That's definitely the first thing. The second is, if you are teaching something, you better be practicing it. You don't want to be someone who's talking the walk rather than walking the talk. So that's going to be obvious at different levels of teaching, is like you really do know what you're talking about, because you have the experience behind it, you have your practice behind it, and your self-realization. So you've got to practice what you're preaching. You've got to question those thoughts that don't serve you, because they're lies, because you are ready and here you are. And the third would be to have self-compassion. so the self-compassion would be like, how can you talk to yourself like a good friend? Your good friends have your back, like, good job, Susie. Nice job, Ramsey. You guys are so great. And a good friend is on your team. And so you really want to be on your own team rather than waiting for someone else to go, oh, good job, good job. It's like you want to be kind to yourself, even when you're scared. Those are the three things I would say.
These are awesome tips. Thank you.
You just have to put them into action there now. That's the next part. Like, but it's a start point. It's great to start.
Well, those thoughts that come, the feeling of not knowing what you're doing and shaky and feeling like you're not ready, I say, those feelings are being stimulated because there's energy coming through your body ready to meet whatever nervous system is out there, ready to hear you. And I often tell my students, turn nervous into service. So you feel nervous, but just imagine it's either excitement and it's just getting you ready to be of service. So whatever you're aiming for. I do also think that our experiences that are before us, whatever they may be, are really here to bring us home to our pure potentiality, our highest self, our evolution. And we don't like these experiences because we want everything to be easy. But that's what in the challenge that we build our resilience and we build our presence, we build our wisdom.
Do you find that in your teacher training, so the motivation to become a teacher, I'm sure your motivation when you started out, when you became a teacher, I know you were working with some incredible people in your earlier days with Deepak Chopra, with Byron Katie, Gary Zukav. So you've obviously done a lot of kind of self-development and personal development in those roles that you played with them. But, which led to you, creating the McLean Meditation Institute. And so you've seen all of these, like hundreds and hundreds of students come through your doors. So there's the motivation changes, I think, over time, maybe, like that initial sort of like, everyone needs to learn this. When you figure out this really helps, you become like evangelistical and you want everyone to know how to do it, or you think you could save the world. To, maybe it's because some people are looking for that kind of transcendent quality, for the more spiritual benefits, for the, the connection to their potential, or their, figure out what's their true nature, or, to discover, it's like an inner journey. So does that change much when people come through to become teachers, like the motivation? Like it must have for you as well. Why do you continue to do this yourself?
I'm an accidental teacher because I had no plans on teaching. I was always in the back of the room. Deepak would be in the front of the room. I'm in the back of the room. I'm organizing the events. I don't want anyone to know my name. I mean, that was not my plan. I didn't have it on my vision board. I want to be a public speaker. As a matter of fact, if anyone asked me to say anything, I would probably say, can't you get someone else to do that? So, for me, it was evolution itself that was pulling me forward. But in terms of how the students show up in my space now, they are often called. I mean, it's a calling, and it's an interior call. Like, I want to help. And sometimes you don't even know what you're doing or why you signed up for the course. We have many people that signed up for the teacher training. They have no idea what they're doing there. And then they're at the very end. Right now, this one class is graduating at the end of the month, and they're being faced with having to do some presentations, and and they're scaring themselves. And so I say, get a hold of yourself. You know exactly how to calm your nervous system. You're prepared. You've been studying with me for 9 months, so you've got this. But see, the negative self-talk kicks in, and but I try to coach them through it because they signed up for this. It's voluntary. I didn't recruit them. They were voluntarily deciding they wanted to become a teacher. So I think in my case, it was an evolution because I didn't believe I had a lot of self-limiting beliefs, and I didn't believe I could do it. I didn't think I had the quality to do it. But then I look around and I go, I've been doing this for years now. So maybe I do know what I'm doing. It took me a long time to build that confidence.
it comes with the practice, though, for sure. I think the more, like you said, it's like learning to meditate. The more you actually do it, I always say to my students, it only works if you actually do it. You can be talking about it, you can be reading it, you know, but unless you actually put the time in and you sit and you learn to sit quietly, and sometimes it's a right messy meditation in there. It's not always rainbows and unicorns, I know that for sure, but it's like you would always say, you know, and these are your words, like, you know, it's that consistency and just keep coming back and keep coming back. And clearly you're in a good position to teach this. There's no imposter syndrome whatsoever, because you've been at it for, you know, consistently for such a long time, like deepening your experience and sharing that. Like, I'd love you to reflect a little bit about the kind of the transcendent aspect of it, you know. It's like the byproduct, or is it more the goal?
The goal in meditation is simply to do it. That's the goal. However, I can tell you, people, you know, especially for a brand new meditator, their first meditation, it's usually pretty remarkable, I'll just say. And I think of it, and for most people, it's not everyone, but I think of it like a little carrot dangling in front of us that keeps us meditating. Like, I want that experience again. I want that experience where I hear the birds singing just for me, and I feel like this warm glow inside my body. And I think that keeps us going. But transcendence itself means to go beyond, and to go beyond what? In my case, go beyond my anxiety. That's really what I felt a big relief from, to go beyond my sense of responsibility, trying to take care of people that were not my responsibility. I was transcending that. I transcended my self-limiting beliefs at the time. I had gotten in the military. I had gotten married. I sort of ran off and got married during our Christmas break, which was not a good decision. And I had to transcend that experience. And I feel like that's what transcend means. I think for a lot of people who are going through a difficult time, they are looking wholeheartedly for some relief, like I was. And I feel like that initial relief from the everyday pain, you know, emotional or physical or whatever kind of pain, mental, I feel like that is the initial impetus for people to keep going. But then, you know, then we get to, our mental activities here in our waking state. And when we meditate, we go to sort of the source of our thoughts. So you get to skip all that stuff. But as we keep meditating, we start to navigate the interior, let's just call it software of the soul, where we start to go, why do I behave like that? What choices have I made? What decisions do I make? And so we start to look at what makes us tick. When we feel that, okay, good, there's a sense of relief. My refuge is my meditation, and I feel safe enough to look at some of this other stuff. And so I think that eventually there's no difference between the waking state and transcendence. I think that's what you call higher states of consciousness, is when eventually you dwell in a world where transcendence, or that expanded awareness, or that knowing that I am the universe, God lives through me and you as you. Once that becomes your reality, that is the best. And that's what keeps me meditating, because that's my experience. But in the beginning, there was a big separation between my regular life and my meditation. If that makes sense.
Sorry, Sarah.
Yes.
It's beautiful, but every time you put something out there that is meaningful, beyond meaningful, she comes running and she pushes me, so I have to put her up there. I do apologize.
My cat's coming in. My cat's trying to come in too.
Okay. Now you know where the good stuff are coming from. Okay, go down.
Oh my God.
It's like I'm trying to put notes and she's pushing me, and I go, okay, fine, come up.
I have a cat like trying to push the door open. So they love this stuff. You know,
Yeah.
They are so attuned to brain waves. And even by talking about what we're talking about here, and probably in all of your podcasts, just talking about this and putting our attention on this rather than the marketplace creates a brainwave coherence that animals really respond to. I've
Nice.
noticed that. Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a pattern. Last week when we had James on, like his cat just kept coming across, walking across his keyboard. Then Bella Luna was coming in. I was like, okay, let's let the animals show us the way. So
Yeah. I have temple cats and a temple dog.
nice.
Yeah, we're very lucky. We're lucky they come to hang out with us. They're so pure and innocent. Yeah.
Apologies.
Oh, it's okay.
One thing I took a note, I was able to look at it. So you talked about relief. Go ahead.
I have to just let her in.
Yeah.
She just wants to come in. She'll be here. So there she is. I don't know if you can see her. She's at the door. She's my temple cat. Where is she? There.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She wants to go out. So we'll let her out. Okay.
They're beautiful cats Sarah has. Oh my God, they're gorgeous.
I adopted them. They were still in trouble physically, but it's okay. They have a lot of love. Yeah. Anyway, you wrote something down you were going to ask about?
I did write something down, which is about the relief, how to move from the trauma space or the chaos space into a quiet and stuff. And you mentioned two things, actually. One is the faculty of imagination. And the second one is meditation. Now, are they both should be done together, or should we take one at a different time, or how should we deal with that? For someone who's not, I have a monkey brain or a squirrel brain. It's like, oh, shiny object over here, so let me move. How would I use them to kind of like quiet or at least get myself centered?
Well, I would say they're two different practices, but they're very complementary. You can use imagination anytime. It activates the brain. You have thoughts, you're engaged with your thoughts, you're directing your thoughts. Meditation itself, if you read the Yoga Sutras, it starts with, now the teaching of yoga begins, and yoga is the settling down of the fluctuations of the mind. So they're on opposite ends, really, but to be able to pay attention on purpose and direct your attention a certain way is a skill set that does require a quieter mind, but they're two different things. And imagination for me is difficult because I have something that some people have called aphantasia, which means I cannot imagine things on demand. But I have a lot of patience with myself and think about experiences that I feel. And so mine is more of that kind of imagination, think, feel, imagine. But for you, I would say start with meditation every day, because they're not mutually exclusive, but they are two different skill sets. So meditation every day to help you get to be able to become more familiar with the silence that underlies the mental activity. That's what meditation will help you do. And it helps you to purify your nervous system and get more familiar with being in the rest and digest response, the parasympathetic response, which is easier when you're in that response to expand your awareness and to include, some imaginary experiences. I think it was Louise Hay who says, she's the founder of Hay House, who published my books. She said, do not scare yourself. And do not scare yourself. Our imagination can be pretty scary. I mean, think about a little kid who thinks there's a monster under their bed. We know there isn't, but they still think it's there. And we do that to ourselves, and different monsters, different times of day. But just to start to be in tune with the body and mindful of the body's experience, and to recognize when we're actually scaring ourselves. So that awareness of the body is cultivated through meditation. So they're very complementary, but they're not the same thing.
Okay.
I could teach you to meditate. I think Susie could teach you. She's a teacher.
Yeah, we have a lot of discussions about Ramsey's unwillingness to meditate, but it to be fair to you, Ramsey, like I think that's what I really love about connecting with other people, because what works for one person may not work for the next. And, we met during the mediumship training. So, you have a capacity within your system anyway, whether it's a squirrel brain or not, to access, this other kind of liminal realm, or, the behind the veil, or however you want to describe that. Like, so, I think whatever works. But I do think it's interesting to think about like imagination in terms of kind of like what Sarah was saying about kind of imagining your day, like really putting in the kind of seeds for, how you want your day to go, sort of becoming that sort of co-creator. And, if you start doing something like that, I know that regular meditation practice really does increase your capacity for creativity and creative solutions and things like that. Like, so, I think one can kind of contribute to the other for sure. Like Sarah was saying, that just planting those seeds, like, what do I want to experience today, or get in Sarah's joy bubble. I really love that, and it's all there for the taking and the making, if you ask me. But do you have other questions for Sarah, Ramsey, or?
No, let's continue. I just noted a couple of things, and they're answered. That's awesome. Thank you.
I'm encouraging you to meditate. I mean, at this point, for me, it's like brushing my teeth. I do it every day. I can tell when I didn't do it. I get a headache. I don't feel as what's the word? Responsive. I'm a little less reactive when I do meditate, and I'm more responsive. But when I'm not meditating, and there are days that I don't get to meditate until the end of the day, which I do not like that. But yeah, I can tell, I can feel I'm not in flow. I feel like there's some static electricity or something in my body. But back to imagination, I was thinking about this quote. It's out of Alice in Wonderland. And I think she said, Alice said, I can't believe an impossible thing. She was talking to the Queen. And the Queen says, well, sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. And but the thing is, for me, yes, I set intentions for how the day is going to go. I don't actually imagine my day. What I really spend my imagination energy on is to imagine a future for everyone that is on a planet that is harmonious and beautiful and clear, and there's no toxins, and there's only kindness. And yeah, there are some challenges, but they're challenges that don't break us. And that's how I imagine. I don't imagine my day on usually. I just trust my day is going to go fine if I keep meditating and present and kind and grateful.
Yeah. So just to clarify, when you do the imagination stuff, like whereabouts does that happen then? Does it happen at the end of your meditation practice, or
actually,
on waking up, or when you're daydreaming?
I do it before I meditate. I actually, because I'm sort of between worlds. When you get up in the morning, it's like you're a little dreamy. At least I am, and so I do it right then, because I think, I don't need to scare myself with my phone. I don't want to wake up alarmed. I want to wake up in a world that's wonderful. And there's some practices in my book. There's one called Walking in a Wonderful World. It's something I recently taught my nephew. He had some really scary experiences during COVID and really scarred him. And so we'll go for a walk, and I'll take him like through a park. And I said, just imagine everything that you see, everything that you hear, everything that you're experiencing right now is love. Everything through your loving awareness. But even imagine those trees know you're here and they love you, and that breeze knows you're here and it loves you too. And the ground knows you're here and loves you, because he was feeling a lot of alienation in the world. And, yeah, it's imaginary. Maybe it's imaginary, maybe it's not. But what if it's not? What if it's not my imagination? What if it's true?
But whatever it is, it's very comforting. Like, when you just say those words, like it's conjuring up something that's very reassuring, it's comforting, and I suppose it's shifting the state from that, anxiety or alienation or whatever the feeling is, and shifting it consciously into something, leaning towards more expansive.
Yeah. And, I've said this before many times, but I think it was Einstein who said, the most important question facing humanity is this world a friendly place? And I know from, being under a lot of trauma and having a lot of trauma that without a decision, without making this point, we don't see the world as friendly, because there's always like, how can I protect myself, or how can I make it through here without injury? And so I think what happens is without our own knowing it, we've made a decision the world isn't friendly. So we have to recalibrate and notice how we're seeing the world, and doing what we can to downshift from the fight or flight into the rest and digest, and then seeing the world instead of like a military person, which is how they do it. They start getting, starting like a periscope looking for the enemy, where is it? And when we're relaxed, we can expand our awareness to include everything, because there's nothing to be afraid of. But when we're already freaked out, it almost attracts more of it, unfortunately.
I'm going to segue us into the next section that I'd love to cover before we're on the home stretch. It's amazing how quickly this hour goes. But, it's about getting creative, I suppose, and it's about really kind of how we have to keep adapting to things and situations. And like your nephew, everybody had to adapt to COVID, and obviously that must have had an effect on your teacher training. I know, because I worked with you on many of them when we did them here in Ireland. There was this incredible intensive retreat at the end of the teacher training where we'd be in person, and it was a really profound kind of experience for me to witness. Well, go through it myself first, but then to witness seeing people kind of coming in, with all that imposter syndrome and the fear and the fight or flight running through their systems, and then coming out the other side, like having really kind of touched on some part of themselves that, they didn't even know was there, and, really going out into the world to make a difference as a meditation teacher. So how did that affect your, how you work, how you had to maybe recreate the teacher training in some way? Like, how is that set up now? And, I think a lot of people come out of COVID thinking, well, that was a good thing. And despite it being a tough start, we had a group on there the other day and they were like, oh my God, we've been coming on this Mindful Monday for 5 years.
Right.
And it was because of COVID. So I'd love to hear about your experience with that.
Well, I do. I think it woke a lot of people up to being grateful and appreciating their lives and their health. I think so. There was that. In terms of navigating the world, as you know, I think we came from the Feast for the Soul that one year. It ended on the 23rd of February. And then I think it was, you had come over to visit. And then when you got home, I'm like, okay, we're going to just keep leading meditations every day. We did that forever, called the Alone Together. We were all kind of alone in our apartments and our homes. And yet we had this sanctuary of being on Zoom. So I have a very fond relationship with Zoom and being able to talk to you wherever you are. We get to hang out together. And for me, community is so essential. So however I can find it, however I can create it, I'm really on board with that. So, but what we did logistically is we've decided to do the whole thing online. But I'm surprised. We've done like 3 classes online total now. One in the middle of it, we were able to get together. But what I notice is people still have really deep connections with each other. They go through, we're looking at each other on a 2D, but we go through experiences that are so 3D, 4D, 5D that, and we move together as a community. And that's still important to me because it's hard to find a Sangha. And, I talk about this a lot, but the community of people you can practice with and have these conversations with, and they're not always your family members or your friends, and they're not always your neighbors. They can include all those. But I feel like Zoom has allowed us to be having these deep conversations that can change our lives. And so I do it all online now over 9 months. This last group I'm working with, they're graduating at the end of March. And then I've got another group starting at the end of April. And then, you didn't know this maybe, Susie, but I'm putting together a teacher retreat, as I do every other year. And this time I think I missed a year, but it's going to be in Sedona in Arizona. And I've already rented the space, and it's going to be in the end of February, last weekend of February, first weekend of March, the 27th of February till March 2nd. And it'll be a teacher meditation retreat. It's like a whole immersion into silence. So it should be pretty fun. I got to get you over here for that. And who knows where Ramsey will be. He'll be teaching meditation now by then. The best way to get something under your belt is by teaching it and learning how to teach it. That's what I can tell you, is it's, especially if you have a curiosity about it, it's not accidental.
No, it's not accidental. Otherwise, I wouldn't bumped into Susie for the past couple of years. Where go for it. And I think, yeah, it's time. Good.
Well, whatever you want to do. I mean, if you want to, a lot of people take the training, and I'm not trying to sell my training here because it's really, if it's for you, but a lot of people take the training. They've only dabbled a little bit in meditation, but they know they want to know more. And this is where the power of community comes in. Actually, as a Zen Buddhist, which I identify as a Zen Buddhist, there are three jewels to spiritual practice. And this is for any religion, really. First is your practice. What are you doing? Are you praying? Are you doing the rosary? Are you meditating? Are you chanting? Are you singing? Are you walking? Are you forest bathing? So your one thing is your practice, and what they call it is the Buddha, connecting to that part of you. That's the deepest part of you. The second jewel is wisdom. Now, you guys are presenting this podcast. You're giving people that second jewel. You're getting all these people on here who are sharing their pearls of wisdom. And whether you get it from Rumi's poetry or from a love song on the radio, or whether you get it from a podcast or a poetry book, that's where you need that as part of your spiritual growth. So you've got your practice, where you get your wisdom. And then the third, which I've already said is the most important to me, is the community of support. People take refuge in these three jewels. Refuge meaning it's a safe place. Maybe you always have a book by, like I have the Bhagavad Gita, I look at that a lot. I look at the Upanishads. That's my refuge. And sometimes the writings of Emerson, I just feel at home when I'm with that. And then some people find their refuge in community. The weekly meditations on Mondays at Susie's or with me on Wednesdays. And then some people find it, in their own practice. That's all they need. They face the wall and meditate, and they don't need anyone else. But I think those days are over. I think we need all three. Yeah.
I fully agree to that.
Yeah.
I think the community. Sorry, go ahead, Ramsey.
No, I'm done.
No, I think the community is really the one that makes the difference. A lot of people begin meditation from a book or a video or something, or some recording that they've come across, and they might begin just, in the closet. I remember being a closet meditator at the start. I was like, there's no way I could handle anybody seeing me attempting this, because you always feel like you're doing it wrong when you're meditating first, because you're not quite sure what you're doing. You're following some instructions and your mind is going for it, saying, oh, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? And so you can start off getting more and more isolated in that practice. But it's when you find the teacher and something really resonates, and then you find that connection with the other people that are doing the practice, and that's where that refinement starts to happen. And making those connections is just magical. Like it's a lifelong connection with people. I found anybody I trained with in teacher trainings in meditation or yoga or Ayurveda, any of that, they're really deep connections, because you're always revealing that part of yourself. It's not so much what's happening in the practice, but it's kind of how it expresses, or how you express yourself maybe outside of the practice. And that quality of your attention, I think, really shifts. So you start making more conscious choices, saying yes to things that are more nurturing, more nourishing, and you start leaving behind things that don't serve you. So to wrap it up, Sarah, do you feel like you've left a lot of your the girl who started off, the traumatized girl who joined the army and, traveled on her bicycle around Asia and, and looking at the incredible inspirational woman that you are today. Like, how does that feel like when you reflect back?
Well, I can say it's difficult to remember, how I was being. I can say that. I can remember anxiety. I can remember, always crying all the time. I can remember that, but I don't really remember how I was being, I can only just imagine it. So I don't know if I can answer that question. I feel like I'm closer to the way I want to feel now, maybe. Yeah, I think that's true. And I was at a women's event a couple of weeks ago, and they asked, what was the best thing that happened this year so far? What, in terms of your New Year's resolutions, what has happened? What are you proud of? And I said, I'm really proud of saying no. And I think that's a difference between the way I used to be and the way I am now. I said no to things that were important, like self-care and nourishing relationships before. But now I say no to the, what isn't nourishing. That's what, and I feel like that's a big deal, because back to the divine masculine, boundaries are really important, and that's a natural masculine quality. And I feel like that is essential for all of us, not to be so porous. Of course, we want to save the world, but we have to really save ourselves first. And so I think that's the big thing, is I'm really clear about self-care, self-love, and not leaving myself to please anyone else or any of that. So that, I think, is the biggest. I don't know. That's just one thing that's coming to mind. I don't know if it's the biggest. It's just really important to me.
It's actually huge for a lot of people too.
Yeah.
You did it.
I did it. Awesome. Just said no. No, thank you. You don't have to say no with anger either. And I decided, I've been really becoming very aware of the effects of anger in my nervous system. And, there's a lot to be angry about, injustices in the world, and, whatever. You can be angry at anything you want. But I'm trying to be more consciously angry. So I know that sounds crazy, but if I wake up and I'm dwelling on something that's making me mad, I just say that is not my business. I cannot do anything about that. I have tried, and it's not for me to change. So I'm really getting clear of the toxicity that is induced by this anger that just permeates our society. Everybody's so angry, and it's very toxic. I think there's helpful anger. You want to protect yourself, your loved ones, but there's also just this permeation of anger and frustration. I don't know what it's from or why it's here, and I don't know the answer to it, except for being aware of it, being mindful of it, and saying, you know what? I'm not drinking that poison and hoping you get what you deserve. I'm not doing that anymore. So I'm choosing joy, getting on the joy train.
Well, that's it. That's the insight, really, isn't it? That to arrive at that moment and, bear witness to that. Like, so yeah, it's not like you're suppressing the anger, you're just experiencing it and making a real conscious choice as to how you're going to navigate that when it's there. And it doesn't mean, I'm sure you get angry sometimes, you know what I mean? We all do, but I think it's a shorter fuse. It doesn't last as long. That's that kind of emotional resilience that comes about as with the years and years of practice. But I know we're on the top of the hour, and I do want to wrap up on time. I do want to mention that on Sunday, the 16th, you're having a webinar for the next cohort that are coming through the Meditation Teacher Academy. So it's the art of teaching meditation. Do you want to how can somebody find out more about that? Where can they, sign up? I think we have the hashtag down there, or not a hashtag. I mean, we've got the link. But do you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, I know some people are saying, who am I to teach meditation? What do I need? Do I need to go to a monastery? Do I need to be like, I did all that. You don't need to do that. Trust me, I will teach you everything you need to know before you shave your head. and put on your love beads. But, you know, I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about what meditation is, how to teach it, why it works. And, you know, are there special things you need to do in order to be an effective teacher? And I've got all those keys for you. And I'm just going to speak for about half an hour and then open it up for a discussion, because I know some people are like, I want to do it, but I don't know if it's for me. So I decided to put this together, giving you little keys, because even if you already are teaching, you might want to come to this webinar just to go, okay, yeah, I could see that. I could see how I could add this to my teaching. So it's you can go to my website. You can go to the button on the website that says events, or you can go to this link that says teach meditation and get on the list, and I'll invite you. Yeah.
Brilliant. There you go, Ramsey. There's your next step.
You have a whole month to get ready, because it doesn't start till April 26th.
Oh, that's good. The link is in the chat, and we'll in the live chat, and we'll add it again in the other chat so that whoever listens to it afterwards have access to the link. Stop it. I'm sorry.
That's your nudge. That's the nudge from the universe.
Yeah.
That's it. Pay attention to that nudge.
Yeah, it'll come chase you down if you're not careful. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a public speaker now, and I was never doing that in my whole life. And now it's my favorite thing to do. So, you know, what you're supposed to do will chase you down and get you one way or another.
Yeah.
There you go.
Fully agree.
Sarah, from both of us and Kathy, who's not here with us today, thank you so much for giving us your time, your attention, your love, your you know, your beautiful spirit on the show in 12D. We're so grateful. We really appreciate it. So thank you from all of us for joining us, and thank you to everybody who joined us online live, and we're putting stuff in the chat today.
Great. Thanks, Susie. Thanks, Ramsey. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
I just had a great time with you. So thank you for inviting me. Thanks, Phil, for listening.
Thank you.